The forest knew their names before they ever stepped foot inside. It whispered them in the creak of ancient branches, in the sigh of wind through dead leaves. Elias. Lila. A warning. A summoning. Because something far older than the trees was waking, hungry after centuries of silence. It wore the shape of a man, crowned in thorns, and it had already marked them as its own. Now, with every step deeper into the cursed dark, the air grew thicker with the scent of decay, the shadows twisting just beyond sight. They carried a stolen relic, a bone shard that pulsed with forbidden power, and behind them, the Hollow King's laughter curled like smoke through the rain. This wasn't a hunt anymore. It was a reckoning, and the woods remembered how those ended. Please wait. Before we start, tap that iCar button in the top right corner and smash that subscribe button. Right now, hit the notification bell so you're first in line when new stories land. All right, let's dive into the story. Chapter 1. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the sleepy town of Briarwood, its rays filtering through the dense canopy of ancient oaks. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming wildflowers, a quiet hum of life stirring in the distance. A lone figure trudged down the muddy path, boots squelching with every step. "Blast this infernal mud," grumbled Elias, shaking his boot in a futile attempt to dislodge the sticky earth. His cloak, frayed at the edges, clung to his shoulders like a second skin. A chuckle echoed from behind him. "You'd think after all these years, you'd learn to watch your step." Elias turned to see Lila leaning against a tree, her arms crossed and a smirk playing on her lips. Her dark hair was tied back in a messy braid, and her eyes sparkled with mischief. "Oh, very funny," Elias shot back, rolling his eyes. "Next time, I'll let you lead the way. See how you fare when the mud tries to swallow you whole." Lila pushed off the tree and fell in a step beside him. "I dance right over it. Unlike some people, I don't weigh as much as a boulder." Elias gasped, clutching his chest in mock offense. "That's it. No more sharing rations with you." Lila's smirk vanished. "Wait, no, Elias, I take it back. You're as light as a feather." "Too late," he sang songed, waving a piece of dried meat just out of her reach. The banter was cut short by a low growl from the underbrush. Both froze, their hands instinctively drifting toward their weapons. The rustling grew louder, and a pair of glowing eyes emerged from the shadows. "Easy now," Elias murmured, his voice steady despite the tension coiling in his gut. A massive wolf stepped into the light, its fur matted with dirt and its lips curled back in a snarl. Lila's fingers tightened around the hilt of her dagger. "Well, this is just perfect." The wolf lunged. Elias yanked Lila aside, just in time, the beast's claws grazing his arm. He hissed in pain, but didn't hesitate, drawing his sword in one fluid motion. "Stay behind me." Lila, however, had other plans. She darted forward, her dagger flashing in the sunlight. "Behind you? Please. I've been handling wolves since I was 10. The wolf snarled, pivoting to face her. Elias seized the opportunity, driving his blade into its flank. The creature howled, staggering before collapsing onto the ground. For a moment, the only sound was their ragged breathing. Then Lila grinned. "See? Teamwork." Elias wiped his blade clean, shaking his head. "You're impossible. And yet, you'd be lost without me," she teased, nudging him with her elbow. He couldn't argue with that. As they resumed their journey, the tension ebbed, replaced by the familiar rhythm of their camaraderie. But the encounter left a lingering unease. Wolves didn't usually attack unless provoked or desperate. Lila must have sensed it too. Her voice dropped, all traces of humor gone. "Something's not right here." Elias nodded grimly. "We'd better reach the village before nightfall. Whatever's stirring in these woods, I'd rather not find out in the dark." The path ahead seemed longer now, shadows stretching like grasping fingers. But they pressed on, the unspoken promise between them clear. Whatever lay ahead, they'd face it together. Chapter 2. The air was thick with the stench of burning metal and sweat as Kira Vex struggled to push herself up from the wreckage. Her violet eyes flickered with pain, but defiance burned brighter. Derek Holt loomed over her, his boot pressing down on her wrist with a cruel grin. "Still got some fight in you, huh?" he sneered, grinding his heel into her skin. Kira hissed through clenched teeth. "You have no idea what you're playing with." Mira Slade let out a sharp laugh, twirling a knife between her fingers. "Oh, we know exactly what we're playing with. An alien who thinks she's tough." She crouched down, tilting Kira's chin up with the blade. "But you're just a broken toy now." Trent Vaughn cracked his knuckles, his massive frame casting a shadow over her. "Should we see how much she can take before she screams?" Before anyone could answer, a voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Step away from her." The group turned to see Jace Riker standing at the edge of the wreckage, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. His dark eyes locked onto Derek, and for the first time, the mercenary hesitated. Derek scoffed, recovering quickly. "This doesn't concern you, Riker. Walk away." Jace didn't move. "You're right. It doesn't concern me. But beating someone half to death for fun? That's just pathetic." Mira rolled her eyes. "Oh, spare us the moral speech. She's not even human." Jace's jaw tightened. "Neither are you, apparently." Trent let out a low growl and took a step forward. "You got a death wish or something?" Jace smirked, shifting his stance slightly. "Try me." Derek's patience snapped. "Enough talk." He lunged at Jace, fist swinging. Jace moved like lightning, ducking under the punch and driving his elbow into Derek's ribs. The mercenary wheezed, stumbling back. Myra's knife flashed as she lunged, but Jace caught her wrist, twisting it until she cried out. The blade clattered to the ground. "You're making a mistake," she hissed. Jace shoved her back. "Yeah? Then why are you the ones on the ground?" Trent roared, charging like a bull. Jace sidestepped, slamming his fist into the brute's kidney. Trent grunted, swinging wildly, but Jace was faster. His knee shot up, crunching into Trent's jaw. The big man dropped like a sack of rocks. Derek wiped blood from his lip, glaring. "This isn't over." Jace shrugged. "It is for today." He turned to Kira, who was watching him with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. "Can you walk?" he asked, his voice low. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." "Good. Then let's go." Mira spat on the ground. "You're really choosing her over us?" Jace didn't even look back. Wasn't a hard choice. As he helped Kira to her feet, Derek called after him, voice dripping with venom. "You're dead, Riker. You hear me? Dead." Jace ignored him, focusing on Kira's labored breathing. "You're hurt worse than you're letting on." She grimaced. "I'll live. Not if we stay here." He slung her arm over his shoulder, supporting her weight as they moved away from the wreckage. Behind them, Mira helped Trent up, her eyes burning with fury. "We're not done with this," she muttered. Derek clenched his fists. "No, we're just getting started." The wind howled through the ruins as Jace and Kira disappeared into the shadows, the first sparks of an unlikely alliance igniting in the darkness. Chapter 3. The village of Black Hollow loomed ahead, its crooked houses leaning against one another like drunken old men. A thick mist curled around the streets, muffling sound and swallowing the edges of buildings. Elias tightened his grip on his sword, his knuckles whitening. "Cheerful place," Lila muttered, her nose wrinkling. "Smells like rotten cabbage and bad decisions." Elias shot her a look. "Try not to insult the locals before we've even said hello." "Oh, come on," she said, nudging him. "You're telling me you don't feel it? This place is off." He couldn't deny it. The air was too still, the silence too heavy. Even a usual hum of insects was absent, as if the very land was holding its breath. A door creaked open ahead, and a hunched figure shuffled into view. An old woman wrapped in a tattered shawl, her milky eyes fixed on them. "You shouldn't be here," she rasped, her voice like dry leaves. Lila arched a brow. "Lovely welcome. Care to elaborate?" The woman's gnarled fingers tightened around a wooden charm hanging from her neck. The woods are hungry. It's taken 3 of ours already. Elias stepped forward, lowering his voice. Taken? By what? A gust of wind howled through the empty street, rattling shutters. The woman's gaze flickered toward the tree-line, fear flashing in her eyes. Something old. Something that shouldn't wake. Lila crossed her arms. Well, that's reassuringly vague. The woman's lips twisted into a scowl. Mock if you will, girl. But when the shadows start moving on their own, you'll wish you'd listened. Elias exchanged a glance with Lila. They'd seen enough strangeness already to take the warning seriously. Is there anyone left in the village who can tell us more? The woman hesitated, then jerked her chin toward a dimly lit tavern at the end of the street. Old Garrick might talk, if he's sober enough. Lila flashed a grin. Perfect. Drunk men love me. Elias groaned. That's not something to brag about. She winked. Isn't it? Inside the tavern, the air was thick with smoke and the sour tang of spilled ale. A handful of villagers huddled in corners, their whispers dying as the strangers entered. At a corner table, a grizzled man with a scarred face nursed a tankard, his gaze sharp despite the drink. Lila sauntered over, sliding into the seat across from him. You must be Garrick. The man's eyes narrowed. Who's asking? Elias joined her, resting his hands on the table. We're looking for answers. People are disappearing. The woods aren't safe. Garrick barked a laugh. Safe? They haven't been safe for decades. He took a long swig, then slammed the tankard down. But it's worse now. The old stories, the ones we told to scare children, they're coming true. Lila leaned in. What stories? A shadow passed over Garrick's face. The Hollow King. They say he sleeps beneath the roots of the oldest tree. And when he wakes, his voice dropped to a whisper. He'll take the living to fill his cord of the dead. A chill ran down Elias's spine. You're saying a fairy tale is stealing people? Garrick's fist clenched. I'm saying the markings are back. The same ones carved into the stones near the ruins. And the ones taken? They all bore his sigil, a crown of thorns. Lila's playful demeanor vanished. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a scrap of cloth, torn from a wolf's fur days earlier. A faint, twisted symbol was stained into the fabric. Elias's breath caught. That's not possible. Garrick's face went pale. You've seen it already. He pushed back from the table, his chair scraping loudly. Then you don't have much time. He's chosen his next prey. Lila's fingers curled around the cloth. And how do we stop him? The old man's laugh was hollow. You don't. You run. Outside, the wind howled again, louder now, almost like a voice. Elias met Lila's eyes, and for once, neither of them had a joke to lighten the mood. Something was coming, and running wasn't an option. Chapter 4. The fire crackled weakly between them, its orange glow barely pushing back the creeping dark of the forest. Elias poked at the embers with a stick, sending up a flurry of sparks. You realize we're basically sitting out here like bait, right? Lila said, sharpening her dagger with slow, deliberate strokes. The blade glinted in the firelight, wickedly sharp. Elias tossed the stick into the flames. Got a better idea? Garrick said the Hollow King marks his prey. Might as well make it easy for him to find us. Lila snorted. Oh, brilliant plan. Hey, ancient evil spirit, come eat us. Really inspiring leadership. Would you rather wander blind through the woods all night? Elias shot back. At least this way, we picked the battleground. A twig snapped somewhere in the trees. Both of them went still, hands drifting toward their weapons. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Lila exhaled sharply. Probably just a squirrel. Or a very polite monster, Elias muttered. She grinned, though it didn't reach her eyes. Maybe he's waiting for an invitation. Should I set out a nice table? Light some candles? Before Elias could retort, the air turned icy. Their breath fogged in sudden, unnatural cold. The fire sputtered, then died, as if snuffed by an invisible hand. Lila was on her feet in an instant, dagger raised. Okay, that's definitely not a squirrel. Shadows pooled at the edge of the clearing, twisting like living smoke. A low, rasping laugh echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Clever little things," a voice whispered, slithering through the trees. "You wanted me to come." Elias drew his sword, the steel ringing in the stillness. "Show yourself." The shadows coalesced, forming a towering figure, a man, or something like one, clad in tattered robes of black. His face was hidden beneath a crown of jagged thorns, their points digging into flesh that never bled. The Hollow King tilted his head. "Brave words. But bravery is just fear with a prettier name." Lila flipped her dagger in her grip. "And monologuing is just stalling with a fancier accent. What do you want?" The king's laughter was a dry, rattling sound. "What all kings want, subjects." His skeletal fingers twitched, and the shadows at their feet writhed. "You'll do nicely." Elias lunged, sword flashing. The blade passed straight through the king's form, as if he were made of mist. "Mortal steel," the king sighed, disappointed. "Always the same dull trick." Lila darted in, slashing with her dagger, but the shadows lashed out, wrapping around her wrist like vines. She yelped as the metal clattered to the ground. Elias grabbed her arm, yanking her back. "Run, now!" They crashed through the underbrush, branches whipping at their faces. Behind them, the king's voice followed, amused. "Run, little sparks. The dark is so much hungrier when you struggle." Lila gasped as her foot caught on a root. Elias hauled her upright without breaking stride. "Keep moving." Ahead, the trees thinned. Moonlight spilled over the ruins of an ancient stone circle. The same markings from Garrick's stories carved into the weathered rock. Lila skidded to a stop. "Oh, you gotta be joking. This is our hiding spot." Elias dragged her toward the largest stone. "It's the only place he hasn't touched. Maybe the carvings hold him back." The Hollow King emerged from the trees, his form flickering like a dying candle. "Do you truly think children's scratches can stop me?" Lila bared her teeth. "Worth a shot." She snatched a jagged piece of stone from the ground, slicing her palm. Blood dripped onto the carvings. The king recoiled. "What?" The symbols flared to life, glowing crimson. The ground trembled as the shadows shrieked, recoiling like scorched insects. Elias stared. "Lila, how did you—" She swayed, suddenly pale. Grandma was a witch. Forgot to mention that part. Then her knees buckled. Elias caught her as the Hollow King's howl of rage split the night. The ruins held for now, but as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, one thing was certain: they'd made an enemy, and he wouldn't stay banished forever. Chapter 5. The ruins of the old city loomed around them like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. Jace moved in silence, his boots barely disturbing the dust as he scanned the crumbling buildings. Kira walked beside him, her glowing violet eyes cutting through the darkness like twin beacons. "You're sure the data core is here?" Jace muttered, his hand resting on the grip of his pistol. Kira nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "The ship's last transmission pinged from these coordinates. But we're not the only ones looking for it." As if on cue, a shadow shifted in the alley ahead. Jace froze, pushing Kira behind him. "Show yourself," he barked. A figure stepped into the dim light. Derek Holt, his face bruised from their last encounter, his grin sharp as a knife. "Miss me?" Jace exhaled through his teeth. "Like a bad rash." Mira Slade emerged from the opposite alley, her knife glinting. "We knew you'd come for the core. Couldn't resist playing hero. Could you, Riker?" Trent Vaughn lumbered into view, cracking his knuckles. "This time, you don't walk away." Kira's fingers curled into fists, her suit shimmering with restrained energy. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. That core isn't just data, it's a weapon." Derek laughed. "Even better. Means we can sell it for double." Jace's finger hovered over the trigger. "Last chance. Walk away." Mira flipped her knife. "Or what?" The shot rang out before anyone could react, but it didn't come from Jace's gun. A black-armored soldier stepped onto the rooftop above, his rifle smoking. "Or you die where you stand?" the soldier intoned. Jace's blood ran cold. Obsidian crown. Derek paled. What the hell? The air erupted in gunfire. Jace grabbed Kira and Dove behind a collapsed wall as energy bolts scorched the ground where they'd stood. Mira screamed as a blast grazed her shoulder. We're on the same side now, Riker. Jace gritted his teeth. Like hell we are. Kira's eyes blazed. We don't have time for this. The core. A thunderous explosion cut her off as the building across the street collapsed, revealing a squad of crowned soldiers advancing in formation. Their leader's voice boomed through a modulator. Surrender the weapon, and you may live. Trent roared, charging blindly. A single shot dropped him mid-stride. Derek backpedaled, his bravado crumbling. We're outgunned. Jace ejected a spent clip and slammed in a new one. No kidding. Kira grabbed his arm, her touch electric. There's another way. I can, no. Jace cut her off. Not yet. Not unless we have no choice. Mira pressed against the wall beside them, breathing hard. Got any bright ideas? Jace risked a glance over the rubble. The soldiers were closing in. Yeah, he said grimly. We make them regret coming after us. Kira met his gaze, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. A promise, a warning. Then she nodded. On your signal, she whispered. Jace took a deep breath. Now, they moved as one. Jace laying down, covering fire, while Kira's form began to glow. Mira and Derek stared in shock as energy crackled around the alien woman, the air itself vibrating with power. The lead soldier hesitated. Contain her. Now. Too late. Kira's voice echoed like a thunderclap. You should have run. Then the world turned white. Chapter 6. The ruins of the old temple loomed ahead, its crumbling arches like skeletal fingers clawing at the storm-churned sky. Thunder growled in the distance, and the first heavy drops of rain began to fall, soaking through Elias's cloak as he adjusted Lila's weight across his shoulders. You sure this is the place? Lila muttered, her voice weak but still laced with skepticism. The blood ritual had drained her, but she refused to stay behind. Elias squinted through the downpour. Garrick said the temple holds the last piece of the binding ritual. If we're going to stop the Hollow King for good, we need it. Lila groaned. Of course it's in the creepiest possible location. Why couldn't it be in a nice bakery? Or a library? Because evil ancient kings have no appreciation for pastries, Elias deadpanned, kicking aside a rotting plank blocking the entrance. The wood splintered with a crack that echoed too loudly in the hollow space beyond. The inside of the temple was worse than the outside. Crumbling murals of forgotten gods stared down with hollow eyes, their faces half-eaten by mold. The air smelled of damp stone and something older, something bitter. Lila shivered. I hate this. I really hate this. Elias ignored the prickle of unease crawling up his spine. Look for a symbol, a crown of thorns wrapped in chains. That's what Garrick described. They picked their way through the debris, the only sound the drumming of rain on the broken roof. Then Elias. Lila's voice was sharp. She pointed to the far wall, where a faded but unmistakable carving stood out among the ruins. The crown, the chains, and beneath it, a small rusted box. Elias reached for it, but Lila grabbed his wrist. Wait, this feels too easy. He hesitated. She was right. The Hollow King had hounded them for days. Why wouldn't he guard the one thing that could destroy him? As if summoned by the thought, the shadows in the corners of the room began to writhe. A familiar, rasping laugh slithered through the darkness. Clever, the Hollow King murmured, his voice oozing from the walls themselves. But not clever enough. The ground trembled. Elias snatched the box just as the floor beneath them cracked open, yawning into a bottomless pit. Lila yelped as she lost her footing. Elias grabbed her arm, hauling her back as she dangled over the edge. I've got you. The king materialized before them, his thorn crown gleaming wetly in the dim light. Give it to me, he whispered, and I'll let her live. Lila's eyes flashed. Don't you dare, Elias. Elias tightened his grip on the box. "And why would I trust you?" The king's smile was a knife slash of malice. "You wouldn't." With a snarl, Lila twisted, driving her boot into the king's chest. He staggered, just enough for Elias to wrench her back onto solid ground. "Run!" Elias barked. They bolted for the entrance as the temple groaned around them, stones crashing down in their wake. The Hollow King's scream of fury chased them into the storm, shaking the very earth. Lila gasped as they cleared the collapsing ruin, rain streaming down her face. "Did we just win?" Elias clutched the box, his heart pounding. Not yet. He pried it open. Inside lay a single, twisted shard of blackened bone. "This is his." Lila's grin was fierce. "Then let's finish this." Somewhere in the storm, the Hollow King howled, and the final hunt began. Chapter 7. Jace's eyelids fluttered open to blinding white light. His body felt weightless, suspended between consciousness and something deeper. The last thing he remembered was the searing pain of an energy blast tearing through his chest, Kira's scream ringing in his ears. "You died." The voice was soft, melodic. He turned his head to see Kira sitting beside him, her luminous violet eyes brimming with unshed tears. Her usual sleek black suit had transformed into something radiant, gleaming white, pulsing with energy. Jace tried to sit up, but his muscles refused to cooperate. "How long was I out?" 3 minutes, 17 seconds, Kira said, her fingers brushing against his sternum where the blast had struck. "Your heart stopped." Jace frowned, pressing his hand to his chest. "No wound. No scar. Just smooth skin and a strange warmth beneath." "That's impossible." Kira's lips curved into a sad smile. "Not for me." A sudden rush of memories flooded Jace's mind. Kira kneeling over him, her hands glowing as she pressed them against his wound, whispering words in a language that made the air vibrate. "What did you do to me?" he demanded, his voice rough. Kira took a deep breath. "I share part of my essence with you, a fragment of my power." Jace's eyes widened. "You mean I'm not fully human anymore?" "No." She shook her head. "But not like me either. You're something in between now." Outside the makeshift shelter, the wind howled through the ruins. The obsidian crown soldiers were gone, reduced to ashes by Kira's unleashed power. But both of them knew more would come. Jace swung his legs over the edge of the cot, testing his strength. To his surprise, he felt better than he had in years, stronger, faster. "So what's the catch?" Kira arched an eyebrow. "Catch? Nothing's ever free," Jace said, standing. "There's always a price." Kira looked away, her glow dimming slightly. "The more I use my power, the more it consumes me. And now, some of that is inside you too." Jace absorbed this, then surprised himself by laughing. "So we're both on borrowed time?" Kira blinked. "You're taking this rather well." Jace stretched his arms, feeling the strange, new energy coursing through him. "After the week I've had, this is practically a vacation." A genuine smile broke across Kira's face. "Humans, you're all insane. Takes one to know one," Jace shot back. Then his expression sobered. "So what now? We can't keep running forever." Kira stood, her white suit shimmering as she moved to the doorway. The first light of dawn painted the wasteland in hues of gold and crimson. "No, now we fight back." Jace joined her, squinting at the horizon. "Just the two of us against an empire?" Kira's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. A spark of energy jumped between them. "Not just two. Not anymore." As the sun rose, something incredible happened. Jace's skin began to glow faintly, mirroring Kira's radiance. He stared at his hands in wonder. Kira squeezed his fingers, ready to burn the crown to the ground. Jace grinned, feeling the power humming in his veins. "Thought you'd never ask." And as they stepped into the dawn, two figures now glowing with shared purpose, the wind carried the scent of change across the barren land. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled, not from clouds, but from the engines of approaching warships. Kira's eyes flashed with violet fire. Let's give them a welcome they'll never forget. Jace cracked his knuckles, his own eyes beginning to shimmer with unnatural light. After you, partner. The ground shook as they launched themselves forward, no longer prey, but predators. The Obsidian Crown would learn the hard way. Some fires, once lit, cannot be put out. And this one would consume the stars themselves. And that was the end of the story. Comment below if you want the next chapter, and hit that like button. Please subscribe, turn on the bell, and, as always, keep the last light burning.